Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you're calling from around the world. My name is Sandy Hart, and I am the director of the Women and Girls sector of the Charter for Compassion. And once again, it's my supreme delight to welcome Grandmother Flordemayo to this call, the 20-day of Ish urgent call from the Spirit of the Feminine, which is a result of a mandate the grandmother received. And if this is one of the first times you've dialed into this call, I highly recommend you go to the charterforcompassion.org website, find Women and Girls under the Partners section, and there you'll see all of the recordings from all of our previous calls to get caught up on where we are in this amazing series. Welcome, Grandmother. Welcome to all of you who have been here. Grandmother, in our last call together, you walked us through your property of the path and the different temples, which and told the story of how this all came to be, literally, and how the buildings were constructed, and the spirit and the amazing story that you built this extraordinary place and space on to oh, bless you.
Thank you.
And what that for me did was it really grounded us. It really helped us really truly understand, put in context a little bit more of what you're saying, which is a hard thing to put in context because it is such deep spiritual wisdom. But with that said, I just wanted to thank you for that tour. And again, if you weren't on our last call, please do go back and watch the last recording so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So here we are preparing for tomorrow, which is the actual day of Ish. And so Grandmother has asked that we host this call in advance so that we could fully prepare for it for tomorrow. And with that, I'd like to welcome you, Grandmother, and invite your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's a great honor to be here. I want to say greetings to everybody in the four directions, sending everybody lots and lots of love and light this morning. I would like to thank the spirit of the four grandmothers in the four directions, the spirit of our ancestors, beloved Creator. Thank you for this beautiful moment right now. We are present at different times around the globe. Right here in New Mexico, it is 9 o'clock in the morning. I want to thank all of our spirit of all of our ancestors in the globe as we start this beautiful day, and I send much blessings and much gratitude to the holy ones, the spirit of the heart of the heavens and the heart of the earth. Thank you, beloved Creator, for allowing me to be here this morning, to be able to be on the phone and to be able to speak in this way, to prepare us for another day of Ish tomorrow. Today on our Mayan calendar is the day of Ach, and it is the day in which we think of the families and doing all that is for the betterment of the family. Want to thank beloved Mother, Creator, Maker of all of the beautiful things that are around us, for allowing us to be here and to be in conversation at this particular moment. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Thank you. So today, it's a day in which we not only celebrate this sacred day of Ach, and you spell it A-J, simply because it is a day of putting together an altar, perhaps maybe to prepare us for tomorrow, for Ish, And in putting together this altar, what we can think about is all of those things that are related to family. Um, our immediate self first, and then we think of all of those around us, our partners, husbands, wives, our parents, grandparents, children, all of our pets that we might have, extended neighbors, and the community. So I want to share with you that last 20 days ago, when I was walking with you throughout the 40 acres and speaking to you about the different temples, you can, in essence, put things together that would be symbolic of who you are and your family and your surroundings. We all are living in different parts of the world. And so if you take those things that of nature that represent the ish, that being anything that comes from the earth, anything that comes from the plant kingdom, anything that is represented of the wind, anything that's represented of the fire. And so we can construct something that is tangible, something that is very personal, something that's very much you, and we can put something like this together. So I'm encouraging you at this particular moment with those thoughts to construct something that is personally yours, that would make like planting a seed for yourself and your family. Let's say, for example, that you wanted to get some tangible seeds. We don't have to wait to mail order to get some seeds. We can start saving seeds from maybe oranges that we eat, maybe avocados that we eat, apples. I mean, anything that is in our everyday life, we can just put them aside, we can dry them, and then later on just put them in your altar. Get a little container, and every time you plant a new prayer, a new thought, you can put a little seed in your little seed pot in your altar. Let's say, for example, you are wishing that you had a little more time, let's say outside of the house or outside of work, where the children are being taken care of. Let's say that you are wishing that you perhaps maybe get, let's say, for example, like a babysitter to be able to have some free time. And so you take a little seed and you talk to it, you bless it, and you say, I'm going to plant you here in my little altar because I want you to represent that goodness of someone that might be available, that might be looking to help me. And you plant all of these good thoughts into the little seed, and you place it in your altar in a little container. And every day when you get up in the morning and you do your prayers, or perhaps maybe you do your prayers at midday, perhaps maybe you even do your prayers when the sun goes down towards the evening. So you keep infusing your little seed with these, wishes, internal wishes that you may have. And so we continue to keep this prayer going for yourself and your family. And so this is like the beginning of this. With us in Central America, we always start with ourselves. What is it that we need to do for ourselves first? Then we take care of our partners, our loved ones, our children, our in-laws, our moms and dads. And then once we take care of everybody in the house, then we go out and take care of the community. So this is a beginning. So I'm going to open for some questions.
Yes, and by the way, I failed to mention at the beginning of our call that Grandmother does love your questions. And at the bottom of your screen, if you take your mouse down to your cursor down to the bottom of the screen, if it's not already highlighted, you'll see a Q&A or a chat window. Either one of them will get your messages here. So please feel free to ask your questions now. And while we're waiting, Grandmother, I just wanted to thank you for that. I love the idea of creating an altar, a reminder, more than a reminder that we can look at and something, but something that we create with deep intention, that we're not just pulling things together that represent all of those things that you mentioned, but really take the time and the intention to be very careful before we place them on whether it be a tabletop or wherever, perhaps on the ground or a shelf, that you're actually being very intentional with what you are doing. And it reminds me of ever since I was little, when we were taught to bless our food, I always went right to the seed. I always went right to I thought I would bless and be grateful for the person who prepared the food, but then it dawned on me, well, what about the person who pulled the fruit or the root out of the ground to prepare it? Well, what about the seed that grew into its fullest manifestation? So it was right and ready to be pulled out of the ground. So my mind always took me down to that seed, which was always so important for me to remember, and it's something I've carried through with me. So your words touch my heart, and I can't wait to create this altar, starting with myself. We actually have a question, and this is from Deborah Sullivan. And Deborah asks, Grandmother, would this be where we include our beautiful Mother Earth and the holy elements? We could have a little container for them too. And she says, much love.
Yes, absolutely. You incorporate these items that represent the four sacred elements. This is what we've been talking about, speaking about Ish, our relationship with nature. So when we bring nature into our altar, we continue with this tangible altar. We continue our relationship. The reason for these Zoom calls is that Ish is the relationship between ourselves and nature, and within the Maya, it is known as the spirit of the feminine. Thank you so much, Deborah Sullivan. Thank you so much.
We have another comment, actually. It's from Lorraine Moore, and she says, blessings, Grandmother. Could the intent be the same if we planted the seed in our gardens? Rather than on an altar, but literally right into the earth and into the garden itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's the garden is absolutely perfect. Yes.
So perhaps that garden can also be where your altar exists. As a matter of fact, thank you, Lorraine, because I think that's what I'll go do after this call.
Yes. I want to remind everybody that it's really beautiful if we have the capacity of having a garden. It's also very beautiful if we could put our seeds in a little pot and grow them on the windowsill. But for those of us, that is really, really impossible. Um, you can make the intentions by even getting a little bit of a living plant that you can bring nature into your altar. For those of us that are super, super busy, where we might forget to water our plants, the best thing to do is to look into succulent plants. These are the ones that hold the water for quite some time. So even if you forget, and a couple of weeks go by, just write it on your calendar or write it somewhere that you're going to give water to the plant on a particular day, always following directions from the nursery. But I just wanted to put that thought out there that we could have these beautiful succulent plants for those of us that are super, super busy. Look for plants that work with your schedule. And of course, there's always all kinds of flowering plants. So don't be afraid to find things that work with your personality and also with your work schedule.
Beautiful. And I love this next question that we received. It almost makes me a little misty to think about it. This is from Shalania. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. What a pretty name. Good morning, grandmother, and thank you for being with us. Is it possible to have a song we can sing to the plants? And Shalania. Apparently I did say it right. Okay.
Does Shalania want to sing a song to the plants?
Oh, how about that? Respond to me here before I put you on the spot and then figure out how to bring you in here. So Shalania, if you are if you would like to do that, let me know. I can actually do that if you let me know. I was wondering if grandmother has a song to share. Is the response.
I don't have a song. I have a lullaby. I have a humming lullaby that I do, but that's what I do for my plants. Right now, I have some sunflowers that have just erupted on the earth, and I also have some Flordemayo beans that are just beginning to come out of the soil. And they just came out like yesterday. And so yesterday I was humming to them. So I'm going to do that so that we can all learn this. And we close our eyes and we think of these sweet little plants that are just beginning to start coming out. They're still in that little stage where the little stem is just coming out of the soil. To close our eyes. This is called in Spanish murmurio, and it's translated to it's a lullaby. It's sung to little babies, and it's hummed to little babies. But this is the humming. Thank you, Salome, for asking.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. And this reminds me of in my Jewish tradition, it's said that there is an angel for every blade of grass, whispering in its ear, grow, grow, grow. And in this respect, Grandmother, you've empowered us to be those angels for that seed to grow into its fullest potential and manifestation, and carry with it our prayers and our and the divine feminine, uh, which is so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Would you speak to us a little bit about the Flordemayo seeds that you mentioned?
Yes, they come from Mexico, and they are actually beans. So I'm growing these little beans. I received the seeds as a gift from from a dear friend, and this is the first time. It has taken me quite some time to get the soil ready, being that I live in the desert, and it's taken me many, many years. And last year we planted a winter garden, and we could see that things can grow after many years of just keep putting in some good soil and tilling it and putting in some organic different types of manure. And so now this is the first time that I'm going to actually have a garden at the 40 acres. And in the center of the garden is like a little angel baby. And the garden is 22 feet in diameter right now. So the baby plants are just coming out. I just got back from spending about a week doing some work in Chicago. And my husband was watering the garden while I was gone. And to my surprise, yesterday I started seeing the little babies coming up, and it was so sweet to see that. And I'm also growing some sunflowers for the birds so that they can have some food. And so I'm growing a little bit of human food and a little bit of bird food this season.
That's wonderful. If we wanted to purchase some Grandmother Flordemayo seeds, is that possible?
They'll be ready to be given away. I don't think that I'm going to be selling them, but if somebody wanted to send a donation, of course, we'll accept the donation. This place is supported by donations, and so there are ways of getting into the website and finding out information on how you can support the cause, and so they will be made available for people. Yeah.
And then we can find those at followthegoldenpath.org, I believe. Okay, good.
Yes.
And by the way, anything mentioned on this call, including, of course, the recording of this call, will be sent to everybody who's registered for this call. So that link will be included in your email that you'll be getting by probably the end of the day. Grandmother, we have another question from Polly Lazaron. She says, thank you, Grandmother. 3 years ago, I was called to be a water carrier. Since then, I've collected rain and water from other moving sources that is then blessed in ceremony and given back to moving water seeds and Apache, etc. Apacheta, etc. The past 2 times I've collected rain, I found a spider in the water. This morning, collecting raindrops from the cedar tree, I saw a tiny spider on a cedar leaf. Will you speak of being a water carrier and spiders with appreciation?
Okay, so This is a little bit out of my league. And what I'm trying to say by that is that in Central America, every family member is a water collector and a person that is constantly thinking about the spirit of the water. What you are referring to as being a water collector, that is very specific to a North American tradition, and this I do not have any information of, so I will not be able to speak of it much more than that. Um, about spiders, when we think of spiders, we in Central America think about the different interactions on our everyday life. And of course, one thing to remember is that when we see things in nature is because little critters and little animals is because they are messengers and they are bringing something to us. So, just look out for all of these different weavings that might be happening in your personal life. So one good thing about it is to be attentive to all of the things that are around you in nature. There are some things that are very significant, and then there are other things that are just part of nature. The morning is very, very important for many, many little animals to be able to receive some of the dew and some of the moisture in the morning. So some things are just that the little critters are just outside um, replenishing themselves with water. But, at the same time, look out for all of these symbolism of all these little critters. Thank you.
Yes, I love that question, because what it does is it reminds us that not only to be aware of those patterns and those things that consistently appear in our lives as opportunities for learning and what messages they hold, but also that we are all empowered to be water carriers. Right? We are all. I really appreciate you putting into context that all things that, according to your tradition, are water carriers. And let's not forget that includes us too, and our power in that, what that means. Polly says, thank you. Yes, wonderful. Grandmother, I'd like to ask you how it is, do you do anything different on the day of Ish than on the day of Ha, for example? And I hope I'm saying that properly, Ha. Do you do,
Yeah.
besides making your altar, how do you carry on through the course of your day?
Well, today, for example, because it is family, it's a day of family. We bring in all of these things that relate to family, and especially we think of the children. So on this particular day, what I have already done is brought pictures of my grandchildren and rearranged them in the altar specifically so that throughout the day, I send a lot of blessings to my grandchildren and perhaps other children that at the moment I might have in prayer. So the day of Ach is that it represents the family. And so you can, bring all of the family, everybody that's in your family, in a photograph or several photographs. And don't forget your pets, because everything that is in family, we also bring in our little critters on all kinds of pets, whoever we have might have. And so we bring everybody together. And that's what I've started doing today, is bringing the children into focus. A candle for the children is also a good thought for the day of Ach, because it represents the fire, and it also, the white candle represents the children. To light a white candle for the children is to let them know that we are thinking about their future and clearing the way for them to have a successful future. Successful meaning without obstacles. You know, a lot of times many things can happen, including becoming ill. So we have to think about all these things, that that the children are in good health and that they continue to be in good health. And prayers, well then we invoke the prayers if they need prayers, and whatever it is that they need. Is if you're building an altar, you could also let's say, for example, you don't have to light the candle, but just have the intention of the fire speaking to the invisible, and just seeing in your mind the fire, and putting this forth, that you are holding the light in your heart, and that you are holding the future of the children in your thoughts and in your prayers.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We have another question. The title of the series is The Urgent Call from the Spirit of the Feminine. However, Grandmother, can you speak to the spirit of the Divine Masculine?
So let me just kind of backtrack here a little bit. When what the call says about the Divine Feminine, as I mentioned before, let me ask the caller, has the caller been on since the beginning that
This
we started?
This is an email question that came over before our call. So,
okay.
Okay, so don't know.
I'll answer, and the way that I would like to answer is to start from the beginning. In the beginning, with the first conversation that we had here in Zoom, was that Ish, according to the Maya in Central America, translates to the spirit of the feminine. And the spirit of the feminine, according to the teachings of the Maya, translates to the relationship between humanity and nature. This symbol of Ish is represented by the jaguar. The jaguar, with its spots, represents the heavenly body, which means that we as humans are terrestrial beings and celestial beings. When we speak about our relationship with nature and humanity, we are talking about both male and female. In nature, there are male and female. In trees, there are males and females. In plants, there are males and females. In animals, we have males and females. In humans, we have males and females. But in actuality, when we are speaking about the spirit of the light, we, everybody, male and female, are androgynous beings. So we don't separate between one and the other. The reason that it is the representation of the feminine, it is because us humans in life experience the feminine as that having the capacity to reproduce. But in order for the feminine to reproduce, it also takes the effort of the masculine. It cannot be done without the masculine force. So that's my answer.
That's a wonderful answer. So for me, that just reminds me, especially honoring tomorrow, is to pay very close attention to, are we in balance? Are we in harmony with the divine masculine and the divine feminine? And to pay attention to what that means. If you were to perhaps really stop and think about in our mundane daily lives, where masculine appears and where feminine appears, and masculine being much of the doing and the strategizing, much of the organizing, and yeah, and then in the feminine, it's more of the synthesizing and the being, and how critical they are together. And as long as one is in balance with the other, then we can actually live in a harmonious world and have harmony in our own lives. At the Charter for Compassion, we're all about changing the narrative or impressing upon the narrative of a more compassionate world, even in our cities, in our policy and advocacy. Policymaking and advocacy, how we treat one another, how we are with one another. But when you think about what the word compassion is, for me, it's such a perfect balance. I can see the yin and the yang and the perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine, because it requires identifying the suffering of another and having a willingness to help heal its suffering. In that lies the doing and the being. You have to be present. You have to be willing to strategize and organize around helping in the healing, but you can't get there unless you are truly being with the suffering of another. So I just wanted to, that was actually, just an epiphany that I had recently, and one that I'm committed to living daily, but specifically on tomorrow. I'm going to honor it and celebrate it on the day of Ish.
Yes, so today's class is on preparation for tomorrow, simply because wherever we are in this globe, we can start our day with all of these thoughts. Some of us, will start our day a little bit earlier, and instead of coming around, let's say, hours and hours and hours late in the day to speak about it, today you're being prepared to start your day early when you awaken. So this is like the best way to do it.
Right. Well, today's a special day, of the day of Ah, not Ha. So I made that correction. Thank you. Where we surround ourselves with an altar of family. And I love what you said about putting ourselves first. And that's so important in today's world where there's so much going on, and there's a, heightened tension. If you pay attention to the news, and especially in our country here in the United States, of what's happening on the political front and all around the world, of course, you can't deny the great tensions that seem to be mounting daily. And how important it is that we remember to breathe, that we remember to, that we are sacred beings, and to be in balance. And it reminds me of the airplane philosophy of, the if there should be cabin pressure loss, that you make sure that you put the oxygen mask over your own face before that of your children, so that you can be sure that you can be in full service to what needs to be. And so thank you for reminding us that that it starts here. It starts in our heart. It starts with ourselves and our understanding and making sure that we are complete, so that we can be complete for the rest of the world, moving outward from the layers of our altar.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. I think you're so thorough in your description, and you leave us with such words of wisdom to float on, to process. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Is there anything
Well,
else you would like to share? And if, again, anybody has any questions, now is the time to ask them. Yeah. In the meantime, grandmother, is there anything else you would like to leave us with, that where we can be in perfect service to ourselves and to the world and to the divine feminine tomorrow, especially tomorrow?
Just that we try the best that we can, and it's always very understandable when we cannot, because of huge responsibilities that we might have, and it's okay to do it later, as long as we hold it in our hearts. And later meaning, if all you can do is like on the weekends and things like that, and it's fine just to be a few days late. Everything is perfect. The thing is to bring those intentions into our everyday life, is not to separate ourselves from nature anymore, because we need to support the light of nature. It's we're in the midst of incredible changes around the world. This past week, about a week ago, I received some information that this is just on the global changes that are going on around the globe, as far as weather changes and things like that. And I received an email that there is this very, very huge seed complex in Europe that is holding seeds from all over the world, all kinds of seeds, and where it is at this place where it is very cold, and things are kept under incredible cold conditions. And what the information said was that the ice was melting in this place. And so here humanity is thinking about keeping seeds for the future, and they are setting them in this frozen vault. But now the weather is changing, that where they're at is beginning to thaw. So we have to keep our prayers going, because everything is changing around us so drastically. And here, they thought that they could save these things for generations, but now things are beginning to lose, the ice and the cold in that area. So it's pretty, there's a lot of incredible concern. So, and I can forward this to Sandy, and Sandy can share it with the group so you can read about it.
Thank you.
There's so much stuff that I receive on a daily basis about all these things that are going on around the globe, that all I can do is just pray and hold my breath and ask the holy ones, to protect these places and to hold these people that are working in these places where they're holding things for the future generation. It's really, really difficult. So we'll just keep all of that in prayer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. And this reminds me of something that was brought up on an early call where you talked about the practice, or you reminded somebody of the practice anyway. The conversation went to discussing the practice of this way of being with the world, and the way being aware of our relationship with the earth and our interconnectedness to all things, including those who are working to preserve the seeds, and as well as our prayers and the power of our prayers. But the concept of the practice is the habit forming, and that's something that we can sanctify the day of Ish for as well, perhaps, is that we constantly remember until it just becomes second nature, that we don't have to think about it, becomes part of who we are and woven into the fabric of who we are. And yet that's slow going process. So it does require deep intention and great practice. So I wanted to thank you for that. And that's what I love so much about these every 20-day calls, because it keeps it fresh. It keeps us remembering. It keeps us rolling along, and it keeps us sanctifying. And this should be part of something we do every day.
Yeah, yeah. And the shift is happening quicker than we can grasp. The change that's happening around the globe is happening a lot quicker. So we have to share, these teachings and share these experiences with our loved ones and our friends. So, that each and every one of us, can make this much stronger, this prayer for nature.
Mm-hmm.
The more we have people praying, the stronger the prayer, and that is the best way to look at it. So I want to thank everybody for being here. It is with such great gratitude that I speak to you today. And I thank you so much, Sandy, for making it available to all of us.
My goodness, Grandmother, it's truly an honor, and it's quite self-serving too. I don't mind telling you, and I think everybody on the call, the prayerful group here that is with us this morning and probably listening, join me in thanking you. I want to point out we have one more comment here from Polly, and perhaps this is a wonderful way of sending you off in your day and everybody off on their way. And that is to thank you, Grandmother, for your service, for teaching, and this beauty. It's with heartfelt appreciation. And that Polly, I beg your pardon, has just spoken truth to power for, I'm sure, all of us. We're so grateful for this important message. Prayer is powerful. And thank you all. And Grandmother, thank you so much.
Thank you to you and everybody. Much love and light, much blessings, and have a beautiful, beautiful day today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.